What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about social media and what I've learned from it, and pretty much the whole headline of don't stretch yourself too thin. Now let me elaborate on this. What do I know about social media? Well, I've read a couple books on the topic already from experts, and also I've watched quite a few presentations or webinars from people who have real social media experience, people with millions upon millions of followers on their own platform of social media, such as Guy Kiyosaki, who has 6 million followers on Google+, or a few anonymous people who have millions of followers on Facebook or Twitter. And these are people who are paid to give hour-long presentations on a topic. You guys can search them up yourself on YouTube. But if you want a bottled down summarization of what I've learned, keep on listening to this video. So on top of that, I've read quite a few articles on the same sort of thing. People with millions of Twitter followers. The owner of a Twitter account called UberFacts, who has millions of followers on Twitter. And all these people are pretty much telling you how they achieve their following, or at least they attempt to. And in addition to that, I've been reading a lot on Reddit, which is a huge minefield of information, and they pretty much on Reddit have these things called Ask Me Anythings, where someone successful or famous just does an Ask Me or Anything. He doesn't even have to be famous or successful. Anyone can do an Ask Me Anything, and you can read and ask them questions and learn a lot from them. And I personally have read quite a few of these and learned quite a lot from some people who are successful in this social media space. So one of the big things I've learned is that there's a lot of huge platforms out there. Now, a lot of people know the big ones, but you do not realize how many platforms are out there that are huge and have a lot of space for you to either gain a following, and once you've gained that following, have a lot of free marketing that can just skyrocket any sort of business in terms of advertising and so forth. But it's not always about advertising, you know. It's just fun to have that sort of following and have a community where you can talk about stuff that you enjoy and love. So let me just label the huge platforms currently as of 2014. First the obvious ones, and then the not so obvious ones that are just as huge, if not as huge, but are all sort of hidden or people just put aside. So the big ones are Facebook, and that's typically through Facebook pages. The second one is YouTube, of course. The third one is Twitter, which is huge. Is it declining? That's debatable and subjective. Again, you can't really tell. MySpace, most people did not know it would go downhill at its peak and out of business. So those are the three major players in the game right now. Now let's get on to the other ones that are just as big, if not bigger. Vine is a huge one. This one is very subjective and hard to get into because mostly you can do anything. Music, entertainment, comedy, and there are people on there who have grown Vines to millions upon millions of followers, but they have all been entertainers in one shape or form. So it's harder for business to get around, but most businesses and mom and pop businesses, they can definitely get a decent following on Vine. And Nash Greer is a definite example of a huge Vine personality who's gotten 6 or 7 million people from his medium on Vine and converted that to millions of people on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, which is just ridiculous. He's probably the only person who's had such a high conversion rate throughout and a high stick rate, because he's getting millions of views on his YouTube videos and he started off in Vine. Not a lot of people can do that. And so Vine's another big player, but there's many others. Tumblr is a huge player. One could argue it's declining. One could argue it's still a huge player. Most people have put it off to the side. They don't really think it. They think it's something for girls to play with. Same thing with Twitter, but that's definitely not the case. And you will see this throughout, especially for Twitter. But every little tweet that's put out on a business or a product, that is potentially lost potential. Not even for a business. Just let's say for your own social brand. Let's say you have a YouTube channel where you review manga, or you review a specific toy. Wouldn't it be nice to reach out to those people tweeting about the product or the topic that don't know about you and would love to get to you? So Tumblr is a huge space, and it's very unique. You hashtag things, and it's this very organic feel, similar to MySpace, but at the same time, it has its own feel to it, where you can just post stuff, you can answer questions from your followers, you have a follower base to it, and you can literally post anything, but it's just more, in your face, sort of like a mishmash of Instagram and not so much like a typical blog. Then there's WordPress, which is more geared towards actual blogs with a lot of words to them. We're talking anywhere from 500 words to tens of thousands of words in your article. I actually have WordPress as well in a Tumblr. WordPress has been a huge player, and it will continue to. It is one of the biggest in the blogging platform, and so there's that, and blogger.com. Now moving on to Instagram. This is a huge player that I think should be in the first category. It is just as big, if not bigger, and some say it's going into the decline. I think it's growing still, and people just think it's something where you post pictures. And for someone who's actually studied and gotten into Instagram and looked up a lot of successful Instagrams, you will find a lot of bloggers or small businesses who have literally grown their sales or their following or their blog 1,000 times or 10,000 times from effective use of interacting with the community and growing, and proper tagging and proper description in Instagram. So that's just another huge player in the field. And then there's others. LinkedIn is huge. A lot of people think, oh, it's just this professional network. First off, it has currently 300 million users and growing. Just think about that. LinkedIn is something that is growing and growing and growing. And if you compare that to Google+, which I'll talk about later on, Google+ has about 500, 600 million and growing. And those are including the people who only want the Gmail account and are just forced to have the Google+ as well. It's kind of like those people who buy the Wii and they're forced to get Wii U Sports with it. So just think about how big LinkedIn is. It is a professional network that most people don't realize. It's probably the most underlooked network out there. It's huge. It's great for creating traffic. And just from the videos and webinars I've watched on LinkedIn, there are people who understand it really well, and they've managed to gain a network of tens of thousands and sometimes millions upon millions of people. And because of that, they have no problem with their business, they have no problem with their jobs, because it's about knowing people and people knowing you and bringing value to the table that these people bring. And ultimately, when you have that sort of network, your business will sort of flourish in itself. In addition, there's a lot of little snippets to LinkedIn that most people don't know about, such as groups on LinkedIn, which surprisingly attract, similar to Tumblr, where there are Tumblr pages and Tumblr hashtags that are just very niche, but at the same time attract tens of thousands of followers to it. And especially for LinkedIn, you can literally there's all these little small features that most people don't know about, such as you can literally email out every single member of your group in that niche field. LinkedIn builds in the sort of thing where it can export out a full list of their emails, which is great for people who want like email newsletters. And since they're already opted in, they won't be bugged, or at least that's what they say. But that's just one little thing on LinkedIn. And then let's move on to other platforms that are just as big. Google+, which is 500 million, 600 million users and growing. First off, I thought it was a huge fail when it first came out a few years ago. I thought it was this copycat to replace Facebook that failed completely, and then it was integrated into YouTube, and I thought it was just somewhat horrendous, and no one really used it. Then recently I learned, well, that isn't necessarily the case, because there are people like Guy Kiyosaki and others. If you look at any celebrity, they will have a Google Plus page. Every big company will have a Google Plus page as well. And you would think it's not even worth the time. Well, you're dead wrong, because if you're a big company and you have a Facebook page with 2 million followers, and you have a Google Plus page with 1 million followers, guarantee you that's a huge fan base that you're missing out on, even if it's not as big a player as Facebook. And in someone's case like Guy Kiyosaki, who has 6 million, 7 million followers on Google Plus and only 1 million on Facebook, it demonstrates that Google Plus is just as big, if not big, a player. And it functions very much like Facebook, but it's a more organic sort of style, and I feel like it just caters to a different crowd. Some people like Gmail, they don't have a Facebook, or they don't use it as much. I feel like it functions very much like Facebook page, but it has its own organic feel. It has that white feel to it, and it's very organic, and it doesn't have all the stuff that Facebook has, where it's blue and it has all the stuff on the side with ads and the friends list and the chat box and so forth. But it is very similar in different ways, but it is a huge market. Guy Kiyosaki has, he's putting out posts every day. And if you could reach 6 million people, guarantee you there are people who want to market that sort of audience. Google Plus, another huge thing, and I could go on and on, but those are the big players right now. There are other ones coming up in the field. One could argue Snapchat or this new app called Shots, but I don't think they're really in that true field of social media marketing right now. But roughly those are the big players in the field currently, and there's a few others that I've left out. If you want to know, just leave a comment, maybe I'll respond back. But the purpose of this, on top of just listing how many big social media outlets there are, is to illustrate and tell you guys that you shouldn't spread yourself too thin. From what I've studied throughout is that most of these people who have these big audiences on Twitter or Facebook and so forth, the smartest of them and those who have been the most business savvy have in fact spread themselves out and open up other social media platforms. So for instance, if they have a huge following on Twitter, they're smart enough to at least start at least one other, whether it's a Facebook or a YouTube, an Instagram or a Vine. They have at least one or two more. But what I found though is that most people have at least one medium that they center themselves around. So Guy Kiyosaki, his is Google Plus. His Twitter is managed by automated people and his assistants, whereas his Google Plus is managed by himself, and he's posting 3 or 4 or 6 articles or posts every single day. Same thing with Instagram. The big players in Instagram, not just the celebrities, but the people who have created this into a business, or those bloggers who literally just post cooking pictures, or those fitness people who post fitness pictures. These people who started off just as unknown nobodies, you could say, have grown themselves to 400, 500,000 follower base, and they've done so by utilizing and focusing their time in one stream. And what I have found is that once I've learned so much about these different streams, you can definitely very easily spread yourself too thin if you put yourself across 4 or 5 different social media networks, because there's so many details and ins and outs, and there's so many things that require time and devotion, such as picking a picture, properly tagging it, doing everything properly, engaging and commenting and talking to other people in your community, and commenting on other photos, it's a huge time drain. And the more you commit to it, the more you'll learn about it, and the more details and little things you'll learn about it, you'll realize, hey, these little tiny things require a lot of effort, and they will in fact accentuate my network and grow my follower base, but they take time, and a lot of these things can't just be automated, and if they are, you lose that power, and it won't come across genuine. And so what I found is that the major players, or the big people who have been the most business savvy and most successful, focus mainly on one network, and then some of them will expand to maybe 1 or 2 extra networks, 2 or 3 being the optimal, and manage them perfectly and in harmony. A great example is Nash Greer, who first grew his Vine to 6 or 7 million followers, and then slowly started adding in his Instagram, his Twitter, and now his YouTube. And now he manages all of them, but does them very, very well, so that each of them are very much engaged. And so, you can start, even for him, you can start seeing that there's so subtle things, subtle details that he isn't particularly adding on, because he may be spreading himself a little bit too thin. And then when you're adding in something like WordPress or Tumblr or Instagram or Vine or some other network like Blogspot, you can spread yourself way too thin, and basically you're going to lose out on the quality of all of it. So I definitely recommend, if you're just starting out, choose one thing, and it may be hard to do. Even for one platform in itself, you can be definitely inclined to go crazy and greedy and start numerous pages, like a Instagram food page and a Facebook fitness page, or you do all these things, and you spread yourself too thin, and because you will realize that a lot of these things require a lot of manual effort and a lot of time effort. It's going to take a lot of time. It's a huge time drain, and you want to choose one network, one platform just to start off. And I learned this in Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It. Most people are born genetically they're just inclined to have one medium, one media that works best for you, that excels best for you. And if you don't know what that is, start off by just trying out each and seeing which one you like the most, and then maybe throwing out a few samples on each and seeing which one pulls in the most audience, and then go from there. And you have to sort of do a judgment call of which one do I love the most, and which one has the most draw in your perspective, and then just do a judgment call and think which one you think would be best at, and then go from there. And then once you grow your fan base, then you can think about adding other stuff. And I definitely think that the guy who spreads himself too thin won't get anywhere with any of them, because it's just not going to work. It's an unfortunate thing, because again, so many different ones have so many different awesome capabilities to them, such as Tumblr or Instagram and so whatever. And that's one of the things I myself am sort of working out. I haven't solved it myself. I have pretty much every one of those platforms which I've connected together, but again, spreading yourself too thin is one of those problems, and I'm sort of figuring out which one will I now have to drop. And maybe in the future, if you get that fan base, then you could come back to it and add more, because a lot of people, a lot of audience members prefer different mediums themselves, just like you excel better at certain mediums. It's the same sort of thing. And long story short, they will want a Facebook if they only go on Facebook. Same thing with Twitter or YouTube and so forth. Who knows what's going to be here in the next 10 years that's not here now. I, for one, am very excited for it. And then finally, I do have to say, The biggest thing though is that it's not an overnight thing. It's something just like fitness, weight training, exercise, and a lot of other things in life. It's about consistent effort on a daily or weekly schedule for the next year or the next 5 years, and that sort of thing will over time grow you to something. And then, okay, just one last little tiny bit of advice. Don't get greedy. Don't get offended or arrogant if you're not, blowing up. It's an organic thing, and different people grow at different paces. And if you're the type of guy who's just impatient and you want that million person following in a week or a month or a year, and you don't get it and you're mad, you're probably not cut out for this, because that's not what it's like. Actually, I want to take that back. You have to change your mentality. I'm not saying you're not cut out for it, but you have to change your mentality, and then you could be cut out for it. That's all I really want to say, and as always, like, favorite, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.